All right, welcome back, everybody. It's now my privilege to get to hand over the mic to some really incredible people. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves, but I just want to thank them in advance for their willingness to share with all of us tonight. So they're going to share their 3-minute faith journey in a nutshell. So I'll turn it over to Catherine.
Hello, everybody. My name is Catherine. Can you hear me? Is this great? So first off, this was awesome. I was freaking out about the Trinity. We were just talking about that. And really to share with you with my faith journey is that probably half of you have grown up, a lot of you, we talked about growing up in a Catholic family. I think the biggest thing that I learned growing up was that I wanted to be perfect because I saw the flaws of my sisters, so I would compare myself a lot. So that started my faith journey. But in reality, I learned that not from God. I learned that from a standard that I had set for myself and that I compared to other people. So really, going into high school, just living a huge double life of parties and all of the things, but also leading youth group on Sundays. That was my life, and I didn't want them to coincide, just one foot in and one foot out. And really going to college and trying to figure out, okay, I don't want to live this life anymore. I've been living this life where I, don't enjoy myself, and that's not good. So went to Oklahoma State. I'm from Norman, Oklahoma, so that's kind of a traitor move. It's kind of like living in Lawrence, coming to K-State. So going to Oklahoma State, I joined a sorority, and it was kind of weird because that was the first time I actually saw women who were living their faith, who had met Jesus and who read the Bible, and I was like, what's going on here? So I started doing everything that they did. I saw what they were doing, how they lived their life, and none of them were Catholic. So at this point, I didn't want to be Catholic anymore because I had started hearing so many questions like, what's the deal with Mary and the priest and Pope and confession and all the things that a lot of us probably have questions about. But I didn't actually want to seek the answers. I just went along with whatever was happening. So I left the faith, but for the first time ever, I fell in love with Jesus and the person of who he is. And in that journey, I met a girl in my sorority who invited me on a retreat. And there I encountered Jesus in the Eucharist, and for the first time ever read the Bread of Life discourse. And if you guys have never read this, it's John chapter 6. I encourage all of you. And Jesus wants to offer himself to us as our Lord and as our love. And I never knew that. And that's in the Mass. We get that every day if we want. Some people can do that twice a day. If you're a priest, you do it all the time. So, this was huge for me. And I knew that, okay, if the Eucharist is Jesus, then I can't not be Catholic. And I still don't get all this other stuff, but I know that this has to be the truth or everything else is wrong. So, that started just more doing things like this, like going to RCIA, bringing my friends, going to Bible study, just wanting to learn as much as I could, staying up till like 4 a.m. with my close friends, just researching what's the deal with all of these things. And so that's just brought me obviously not a perfect person at all, but it's just brought me into so much deeper union with the person of Christ and into his church. And I love it. I still am learning so much today. Missionaries came to Oklahoma State, and I've been able to serve with them and do things like this.
Hi, my name is Jordan, and I'm also a missionary here. I'm from Texas. I grew up in Dallas and then went to Texas A&M. Whoop, and Aggies, okay. So going into college, so I was born and raised Catholic as well, so I was going to Mass out of routine and obligation. So when I went to college, I had this idea that you go to college, you make your grades, and you party really hard. And I just thought that's what you do. I didn't really think I was choosing the bad, but I just really thought that was the next step as an 18-year-old. You're away from your parents, this is what you do. So was still going to Mass, even though that's kind of what my life looked like. I was going to Mass every Sunday, like I said, out of routine. But but not out of love for God at all. But I had a random roommate. God knew what I needed and gave me a potluck roommate who was is a Protestant Christian, and she loves Jesus, and she knows him, and it was by the way she prayed and the way that she lived her life that I was kind of invited into this lifestyle. I was finding my identity in all these different areas, men or boys, and underage drinking, and my grades or what I looked like, and she didn't have to do that. She just knew her identity as a daughter of God, so she was living in complete freedom. So there was just something about her that I just looked at her and I was like, whatever she has, I want that. People are attracted to her, boys and girls alike, and she wasn't having to find her identity in all these different places that I was grasping. So through friendship with her, I was able to kind of kickstart my relationship with God. I remember going to the chapel for the first time and praying and asking the Lord to take away these sinful desires. And I think the grace was just given. It was just the Lord had his arms open and just wanted me to turn to him, and he was waiting for me. So when I did, the grace was given, and it was totally a process. But at this time, I had also, like Catherine, I had rushed a sorority, and ironically enough, I had found some really faithful women, and all of these faithful women, though, that I was surrounding myself with were not Catholic. I had no Catholic friends. So at this time, I'm going to Mass in the morning at 8 a.m., because that's what you do when you're born and raised Catholic, and I went to the Protestant church at night. And so just to get fed by a pastor. And then I was invited onto a conference my sophomore year with Focus. So Focus, Fellowship of Catholic University Students, they have a national conference called Seek. And one of my friends from home just was like, you should go on it. And I was like, well, my parents are agreeing to pay for it because it says something Catholic in it, and it's in Nashville, so let's do it. So I went, and it was there that I was hearing speakers, Catholic speakers, religious priests that were on fire for their faith. They were zealous. They were what I saw in the Protestant church that I loved, them being on fire for their faith. I was seeing it in the Catholic church, maybe not necessarily for the first time, but it was the first time I was receiving it, and I was loving it. And so I had heard a talk on the Eucharist as well, the Bread of Life discourse, just like Catherine was talking about. And I remember praying in adoration after that and thinking, if this is true, if that is Jesus in this piece of bread, this changes everything. I have to be Catholic. I have to have my feet in one place. So I went back to campus, started getting all of these answers, searching, reading books. That Rome Sweet Home book that Father Gale has been pushing so hard, that changed my life. I read that, and after that, I just wanted more and more answers. And every time I was getting an answer, I was just even more on fire. Just I want to keep learning. And eventually I was like, I want to be Catholic. So I had some missionaries come to Texas A&M, and just they invited me into their life. Taught me how to pray. It was one of the first times I wasn't just praying. I mean, Our Father and Hail Mary are beautiful, beautiful prayers, but it was the first time that I was taught how to have a conversation with God. So, things just really changed. I mean, just doing the normal life things with the missionaries, when I was 21, getting a beer after my tests, or going to confession, or, all inviting me to the sacraments, inviting me to prayer. Just a game changer. So things are not perfect because I live a life with Christ, but it is a really beautiful adventure, and I am taking steps into living in freedom. I feel more free because, just accepted him and allowing him to just take over the places in my life where I've turned from him for so long. So thank you for listening.
Hi everybody, I'm Kelly and I'm missionary number 3. And I grew up first of all, I love just the title of a journey of faith, because it's not and my story is a good indicator that it's not you encounter Jesus one time and for the rest of your life you're A-okay. It's a journey and you're walking with the Lord, and so I totally see that every day in my life. I grew up in South Louisiana, and it's very Catholic down there, and I went to Catholic school all my life. The first time I met the person of Jesus Christ was at an interdenominational camp when I was 10 years old, and I just really loved the camp experience, and just encountering the Lord there, and in like the Protestant faith, really energetic and fun. When I got to high school, I got involved in a youth group program called Life Teen, and that's where I just like really grew in a lot of spiritual maturity in high school, which I was just like really blessed with like amazing friends and mentors through that program, and I just like really grew a lot in my relationship with the Lord. And entering college, I moved out to Texas, and just thought that since I was like this solid Catholic girl, that I was just like good to go, and I could that I was just like ready to face college. And whenever I approached the Catholic campus ministry at TCU, I just found it like really lackluster, and so I just decided that like I was going to be really involved in it, but like have my friends elsewhere and have like convenient friends, and just like people who were like my dorm mates or things like that. And what that led me into was just like the typical college lifestyle, really. Like through my freshman year, at the end of my freshman year, I got into a relationship that with a guy that just like was not involved in his faith at all, and just like really pulled me away from the things that I knew that I valued, and yeah, just like really like pulled me away from God. And like all the while I'm like super involved in TCU Catholic, and like I know exactly what I'm doing, and exactly what I'm doing is wrong, and just like this wrestling in my heart for like over a year, between like what I knew to be right and like what I was actually doing. When I finally got the grace to break up with him, I started the healing process, and being able to find the love that I was looking for, and the affection and the attention, and the acceptance I was looking for in a relationship, but to really find it in the Lord. And that's just been like a big part of my prayer for like past over a year or so. And about a year ago, the Lord just chucked me over the side of the head and called me to be a missionary, told me to stop listening to my plans and listen to his instead. And here I am, just continuing to just like share the ways that the Lord has like filled my desire for love and joy, and being able to like share with other people, which is just the coolest job ever. And just like the Lord's being able to use my gifts in that way right now in my life. And so I just want to invite you, through hearing my story, just to seek out the ways that like you're looking for love in the Lord, because He has it for you.
How's it going, guys? My name is Chad Lala, from Louisiana as well. Up to my mouth. Okay. So I actually went to Catholic school all my life, and right into getting into college, it took 3 months for me to totally turn away from my faith. I started doing anything and everything that just built all these walls, had all these masks on. Just got into lust, alcohol, all these things that turned me away. It wasn't until my junior year that I joined a Bible study, and really started to learn about the things in my faith that and the really important questions that I wanted to know about. And so one of my best friends invited me onto the same conference that Jordan and Kelly went on, called Seek, and yeah, during that conference, I went to confession for the first time in 9 months, and I just laid it all out on the line. Like, these are the things that I've been struggling with. Lord, help me with them. And then right after, they had adoration, and I remember just right when my knees touched the floor, I just had this visual of Jesus just swimming out into an ocean, and He kept going deeper and deeper. And I was stuck on this shallow side of the ocean, and I realized that I've never done anything uncomfortable in my life. I've never broke through any of these walls, and so I wanted to do the most uncomfortable thing that I thought of, and that was just talking to homeless people. And so I started that ministry up with the help with some friends, and we would just go out, once every 2 weeks and just talk to homeless people about what they're going through, what their struggles in life are. And so the Lord really took one of the biggest crutches in my life, which I thought was at the time my personality. Just being an introvert, I denied these things in high school. Like, I didn't want to go to any parties. I didn't want to form relationships with anybody. I just wanted to be by myself. But he took that weakness, that cross that I had, and turned it into like one of my biggest strengths. And he did this in my life, and he wants to do it in yours as well. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Holly Gilbert, and this is my husband. We are not missionaries, but
it's pretty interwoven, so that's why we're both. But mine starts. Mine started. I grew up in a very Catholic family. My dad's actually a deacon now. So it's Catholic, who that is. Went to Catholic school for most of my life, until high school, and until college. And then once I hit college, I was still really Catholic. I didn't really find the faith in that sense. What I did is other stuff got more important. I was going to school, the Air Force Academy, where I'm going to be an officer, you're taking engineering classes, and you're in charge of other people. And life just got busy for me, and I started putting things on the side. And after that, I came to the state, and that, once I had more options, I still put my faith on the side even more, because now I could do stuff. And my faith wasn't as important to me then. So I met my now wife.
so he kind of met me at a point in my life where I was a complete and total mess. Just going to come out with that right now. I was raised Catholic as well, and up until I was about 12, I absolutely loved it. It was wonderful. However, when I was 12, my parents separated, and suddenly everything that I trusted in my life got completely thrown upside down, and my faith in the Catholic Church and in God was completely destroyed. Up until about the time I was about 17. At that point in my life, I went through a period of severe depression and anxiety that lasted about 6 months. And when I finally got out of that, I was like, there has got to be something more to life than just day-to-day living. Of course, I was still completely like, no, I'm not going back to Catholicism. So I went to a completely opposite end and started looking at pagan religions and Wicca, and that's pretty much at the point in my life where Alan met me. So, yeah. So he met me, and we became really good friends before we started dating or anything. And we started having these discussions about religion and Catholicism. And he was one of the first people I'd ever met who honestly and truly believed in his faith and tried to live it out. Especially from my perspective, because he says he was kind of lapsed at that time, and I guess that was true, but for me it was completely mind-blowing to meet somebody who actually lived what they believed. And so over the next 4 years, we had a lot of discussions, and I did eventually come back to the church, and I went through RCIA last year to become confirmed. And
during that time, one of the things that got me to be fully back, so to say, with my faith and putting in priority is all these questions, because God, but we start to question why. All the whys behind it. Why God, in a sense, and why the Eucharist? Like, I had answers, but I hadn't really put much thought into it. Those who like philosophy, there's a whole bunch of philosophical people, Scott Hahn and Peter Kreeft and that, Thomas Aquinas and others, who put books and books together on this. And it starts, I went from almost a childlike faith of just pure belief into going to adult faith of asking the whys. Why do I believe this? And how can I answer the questions, in a sense? And that's what made me fall in love with my faith.
And for me, I understand now that when I was a child and everything just kind of fell apart, I had a childlike faith. I didn't really have much to base it on except for what I had been told and what I had been taught. And after coming back to the church as an adult, I realized I'm at the beginning of a journey towards an adult faith and an adult understanding of the church, and learning the deeper reasons about why we believe what we believe. And it's really just an absolutely beautiful journey. So, yeah.
Well, now I'm the old one, and I'm not a missionary. But I have been on a journey, and it started when I was 10 years old. My best friend and her parents got divorced when we were 10. So when we were in, I don't know, how old are you? 5th grade, 4th grade? We'd go out for recess and we'd start praying for our husbands, because that's what you do when your parents get divorced. You start praying that, okay, well, I don't want to go through that. So at 10, we start praying for our husbands, both of us. So many years later, I go to college. My parents sent me to college, didn't want to be here, but being the baby of the family, they were ready to get me out of the house because everybody else was, and they were ready to move on. So they sent me to college. I tried to get thrown out of college because I hated being here. And lo and behold, I always thought it was my father who wouldn't let me come home, but it was actually God the Father that wouldn't let me go back home, because my parents were just huge enablers, and they would just give me whatever I wanted, and God said, no, you're done with that. So I made it through my freshman year, even though I tried to get thrown out. I cheated on a test, and he only flunked me. He didn't throw me out, and that was like, no, my dad won't let me come home if I just, flunk. He goes, well, I'm just flunking you, whatever. So I had to come back my sophomore year, and that's when I met my husband. Well, Brent's a whole nother story, but he played football, and my family is like all Italian. I was raised Catholic, but I never joined the Catholic Church because I was kind of the rebellion one in the family, and my brother and sister were older, and my parents had their hands full with teenagers, and they didn't want to deal with a 10-year-old telling them, no, I don't want to go to communion, I don't want to. So anyway, they didn't make me go, which they should have, but they didn't. So I bring Brent back into college. I bring him home. Oh, Lord. So I bring him home, and my father says, we're getting ready to go to Mass on Saturday night, and my dad goes, so, when was the last time you were in church? And Brent, it was just like, And Brent goes, well, it would have been a year ago Easter, but I was in the hospital with a torn up knee. I went, oh, wrong answer. So, off to church we go. And after church, my mom goes, this is what we've been praying for all these years? And we have now been married. It'll be 33 years in December, so it all worked out. And the Lord did have a different path. My parents have been married 64 years, and they are now seeing that maybe our marriage will work. Hang in there. The Lord has His ways with you, and the one thing I will say about prayer, and I forgot, through 20 years of marriage, we went to the Methodist church because we got married in a Protestant church, so we went to the Methodist church. And one Sunday, we went to church at the United Methodist Church, and I went up. They only do communion once a month. So the gal hands me, they tear off the bread, and they hand me the bread, and she goes, bread for justice. And I looked at it, and I just crumpled it up, and I didn't eat it. And we get in the car, and I said, Brent, what is bread for justice? And he goes, oh, go talk to Father Keith. So I talked to Father Keith, and it took a couple more years when I came to the Catholic Church. And you do know that it is the body of Christ. It's not bread for justice. It's not bread for love. It's not bread for whatever. It is the body of Christ. And through now 8 years of taking the communion, it is the body of Christ. And when you take that communion every week, it just is a transformation and a confirmation that it's not a perfect world, but he is in here to keep the boat steady. He's the anchor that you hang on to when things get rocky. And when things are good too, he's there. But when the ship starts getting really rocky and storms, as everybody knows, the storms hit, he's the one thing that you hang on to. So, that's my story.
Hi, I'm Wally Mack. My faith journey as a Catholic started 21 years ago when I met my future wife, Diane, back there in the corner. I grew up Protestant in a little Methodist denomination called Free Methodist, and we were Bible thumpers, you know, and had a lot of people that I grew up with who were and family that are anti-Catholic, and I grew up that Catholics weren't real Christians, and until I met my wife Diane. We were living out in southwest Kansas. She was in Dodge City, I was in Garden City, and after about a year of dating her, we got married. I said, you know, her and her family, this is different than what I was used to. I was in a non-denominational Protestant church in Garden City, and you couldn't find two people that agreed on anything on basic Christian doctrine, and I was extremely confused in my belief system. And I said to Diane when we got married, or before we got married, I said, I'll always go to church with you. And she said, I will not go to a Protestant church, but I said, I will go to Catholic church with her. So her family started praying for me, and after less than 2 years of marriage, I went through RCIA out at St. Joseph's in Hayes, Kansas, and joined the church. And then we moved here, 99, I moved here, and we've been a part of St. Isidore's. And as I tell a lot of my Protestant friends, is they forget the first 1,500 years of church history. And they just start off, Martin Luther broke off with the Lutherans, and then within less than 20 years, you know, 3 or 4 other denominations started up, and the Protestants still keep on going. There's like 40,000 different Protestant groups around the world, but there's only one Catholic Church. And the Catholic Church has always been the same, and has always been firm, and it's something I firmly believe in now. And I appreciated you guys as your stories too. You know, I didn't have the luxury of growing up Catholic, but it's just something that's really important to me now, and I'm just glad to be part of the RCIA here. Thank you.
Well, thanks all of you. We've got a bunch of really fine people who are willing to share their stories, and all of you have a great story to tell. And so I wish I could sit down and talk with every single one of you, because I really do love to hear people's stories and, what's brought them to this point in their lives and where they are. So what we're going to do, I'm sure I'll get a chance to share more of my story with you all, but I don't want to miss the chance for you guys to get to share your stories with each other, and particularly if your sponsor's here, getting a chance just to talk about this and to talk about everything that we heard in the video today about Journey of Faith. So we can kind of go back to some of that, go back to those questions that are in our book, and just have an opportunity to kind of unpack those things and ask questions. And so what we're going to do here for the next 10 minutes or so is that. I want you to kind of, if you can, start with your sponsor if they're here, or if your sponsors aren't here, if you can kind of group together with another pair. Just if you're comfortable, share a little bit about your story, and talk about those questions that are there in your book. So we'll just have 10 minutes for that, and then we'll come back together at the end for a closing prayer. All right, thanks.